Welcome back to the Metro on 1019 WDET FM, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Tia Graham. During the Great Depression, 1932 to be exact, a local group of art lovers saw there was a need for spaces for artists to exhibit and sell their work. Led by Mrs. H. Lee Simpson, then called the Detroit Young Artists Market, focused on artists 30 and under with a living wage. Since its inception, the nonprofit has grown, solidifying itself as an important fixture in the arts and culture community. And after a recent brief hiatus, DAM, or Detroit Artists Market, returned this past weekend with Hot Dam. It features 40 local artists featuring a variety of mediums from sculptures to fiber art to classic paintings. Hot Dam is on display through August 23rd at Detroit Artists Market right on Woodward and Forest Avenue. Miah Davis is the executive director of Detroit Artists Market, and Dr. Kelli Morgan is a curator, educator, and archivist, and the founder of the Black Artists Archive. Both are here to talk a little bit more about Hot Dam. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, same. Thank you, Tia.
Welcome back. But Miah, we're going to start with you. What is the Detroit Artists Market, or DAM, for those who aren't familiar with it, and why is it so important to hold space like DAM and what it has to offer to local artists?
Thanks for asking. The Detroit Artists Market is one of the oldest continuously operating galleries in the Midwest, founded in 1932. We got our start supporting emerging artists within the city, within Metro Detroit. And so many of the major artists that many people know and love today got their start right at the Detroit Artists Market in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're still practicing today, whether they're nationally renowned or local celebrities. So really excited to be back up and running.
It was really cool to look through some of those names and just see some of the legacy artists that have come and gone, passed on now. But to see their names and being a part of that, I was just like, holy cow, why don't more people know about Detroit Artists Market? And Miah, folks talk about the renaissance of the arts community in Detroit. Where is it, or what is it looking like right now for working artists?
So for working artists right now, you're really starting to see not just a creative renaissance, but a really new phenomenon in creative entrepreneurship and artists really understanding and learning more about the business side of art. At Detroit Artists Market, that's a key programmatic focus for us. So we've been doing a lot of program restructuring to focus on how we can not just support artists through sales and through showing their work, but also helping them learn about the business side of art as well.
Yeah. And Dr. Kelli Morgan, bringing you into the conversation, working as a curator on this current exhibition on display right now at Detroit Artists Market, what were some of the things you were looking to capture? What were some of the pieces that you had to have within the exhibition?
Oh my God, Tia, the work was so good. There was probably about 10 or 11 that I couldn't even include because it just wasn't enough space in the gallery. But what stuck out to me like immediately was texture and materiality. And so I picked kind of like 5 that just were like so strong. And then I kind of built the rest of the show, around those 5 works. But it was so amazing. Because sometimes, you jury shows like this and the work is like really uneven, or sometimes it's like really just not good. But that was not the case with this. And I was thinking about like Detroit's history of creative resilience, like talking about working artists and the way in which, so many artists in this city, since the, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, right, built their own infrastructure, right, and built their own communities. And then thinking about the way the texture actually signifies our industrial history too, right? So it's like you could feel the texture and the materiality tangibly, regardless of the medium of the work itself, so whether it was photography or sculpture or installation, it came across like in this really beautiful visual language, that I wanted people to really get a sense of.
Yes, it's industrial storytelling through the materials and the different mediums in which you decided to put on display, which is amazing to think about. Once again, it's hard to think about curation and what goes into it and the process and the whole entire, the process of it is really, really difficult to talk about. But what stood out to you in terms of those textures? What were some of those strong textures that you were really wanting to put on display, especially the ones that you created, that were the centerpiece that you decided to build off of?
Natural materials. So a lot of work, dealing with like leaves or, branches. I hate now that I can't think of the actual like artist names and the names of the work. So forgive me, for that. But a lot of photography that dealt with the earth, sand, dirt, mud, that kind of thing. And then I'm thinking specifically about the best in work, the work that was the best in show. And she's really dealing with like ashes, so it was a lot of like this natural material, coming out. There's also a piece that's like a dress that's like made out of hair, right? Right. It's a really, really cool show.
I'm just like, is it track? Is it braiding hair?
It is. It's braiding hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, we've been hearing about this theme more and more, art and the environment and nature, and it keeps popping up. Right now we have Sidewalk Detroit who's doing their festival.
Right.
And they make sure to intersect those things, art and nature, all the time, and the environment. So why do you think it continues to pop up, especially in the city of Detroit the way it is?
I think because we're so like, the history of the city, we're so like make something out of nothing, right, kind of folk. When I lived on the East Coast, people would always ask me, it's like, you're not from here, like, where are you from? And I would say Detroit, and they would go, oh, right. Yeah. Right, because we are a particular kind of Black folk.
Yes.
And just a particular kind of folk, in general. And I think we do have, such deep roots, to the natural environment.
Yes, indeed we do, especially when once again, the Great Migration and folks coming up from the South who were largely into agriculture and sharecroppers and things like that.
Right.
But Miah, bringing you back into the conversation, I'm going to ask both of you the same question, but as we continue to have conversations about art and culture in the city of Detroit, I often hear, once again, we're in a renaissance of creating in Detroit. It is more apparent. Is it more apparent in your opinion, especially to Black Detroiters, because we have more Black people within leadership roles in the arts institutions now? I'm not saying it's equal at all, but saying that we are seeing more Black people in leadership roles within our arts community. Do you think that's starting to bring in more of the Black Detroiters into the arts sphere? Miah, we're going to start with you.
I do. I went to art school. I've been involved in art since I was 5, basically. Started drawing killer whales and dinosaurs, orcas, I guess they're called these days. They're not whales, they're dolphins. But one of the things you find in the arts is the more representation you have at the leadership level, the more people you see who are comfortable exploring spaces. And with DAM, we're an incredibly accessible organization. We are free, open to the public. All of our educational programs are free. However, even with programs being free, the nature of arts and culture is that there's still perceived exclusivity in many ways. And whether we are intentionally trying to gatekeep or not is irrelevant. There's just that structure that we constantly have to work to dismantle.
As I'm shaking my head up and down, waiting, because I think about that oftentimes when we have conversations, even on the Metro, and we're having arts conversations like the one we're having right now. And I think, in what ways can we change language or change the way we talk about it to bring in larger audiences to have a love and appreciation for the arts in the city of Detroit? So that's something that we try to work on as well, just trying to bring in more people in to understand the creative power that's really, really brewing right now in the city of Detroit. But Dr. Kelli, same thing to you. Do you believe that since we have more Black people within leadership roles within the arts community, especially here in the city of Detroit, that we're starting to see more folks coming into the fold?
Oh God, yeah. I left in 2010. Spent most of my career right on the East Coast, so I got back in 23, and I could tell, it was like a vast difference. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. And so many of the artists, right, have been working for decades, right? And it was just great, like seeing people like Juana Williams, when Taylor, got the position over at Modern H and Brown, Allison Glenn, over at Library. I was just like, oh my God. Because we didn't really hide that. Valerie was at DIA, but she was one of one, and she did, she built an amazing collection, over there. The Right, had been doing the best that it could, over the last like 30, 40 years, as well. But it seemed even, Miah at Dam, was another one of those sort of like really great moments for me, because I had not been aware really, of Detroit artist market, until I got home and started, communicating with Miah. And I was just like, okay, like it's really opening up. And honestly, I would say, just to, and I'll stop here, but just people like Laura Mott and, Katie Fole, like the way in which they were very deliberate about engaging Black artists, for Cranbrook and DIA. I think that made a difference too.
Yeah, you can definitely once again feel like something is happening here in the city of Detroit. My guests are Miah Davis, the executive director of Detroit Artist Market, and Dr. Kelli Morgan, a curator and founder of the Black Artists Archive. We're talking about the return of the Detroit Artist Market and its latest exhibition on display right now, Hot Damn, which is on display through August 23rd at, once again, the Detroit Artist Market right here on Woodward and Forest Avenue, not too far from the station at all. But Miah, bringing you back in, we're getting down to the end of the conversation. What needs to happen in Detroit that gives creatives here opportunities to survive and thrive as working artists? And I love that you talked about just, finding ways that we can branch out and speak to more people than, what we're doing right now, even though it's seemingly a hard thing to do. So what do you think?
In my totally biased opinion, what we need as a city, as a culture, as a nation, is to acknowledge that arts and culture is just as valid in the conversation of economic development as any other industry. One of the things I often follow is Americans for the Arts in their economic surveys that they do across the country every couple of years, and looking at how many hundreds of billions of dollars the arts industry brings in, how many jobs it creates, and not just thinking about myself in the visual arts, but just arts as an industry. Even in, the city of Detroit, I always like to quote research done by the researcher and arts writer Steve Panton about how the city of Detroit and within the state of Michigan, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue generated through arts, not just through the museums, but with smaller organizations like DAM, through, performers, entertainment, and things like that. So economic development, arts and economic development is just at the core of every single thing that I do. And if I do nothing else with DAM, that's just what I want to drive home.
That is something I preach all of the time to people. Arts and culture is just as important. I mean, it's STEAM. I like to put STEM, not just STEM, STEAM. You got to add arts and culture within that conversation as well. When we're talking about what's important to people. And Dr. Kelli, just the same type of situation I'm thinking about as we're moving forward and technology continues to grow. And you're seeing both of you are seeing technology enter into the creative sphere. AI, art, what's your mind going through right now? Like, have you used it yet within your practice?
Not within my practice. I have used it in some of my courses because it was, you have to pay for licensing fees and stuff like that, to use actual artwork. But I've used AI, like generated graphics, right, to like fill out my PowerPoints, so my students aren't just like super bored. But it is really problematic, right, because it's really erasing the artist's hand, and it's actually pulling from actual artists' work. I follow a few artists on social media who are like advocates, against it, because it's a gray area. It's like it really gets muddy, and we just can't erase the human hand, from something like arts and culture.
Same thing, Miah. What do you think about artificial intelligence and art right now? Because like Dr. Kelli just said, it's wide open right now. There are no regulations. There are not really any roadblocks or boundaries yet. So what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and art?
I'm so glad you gave the in art specifically, because I have so many views on artificial intelligence as a person who started experimenting with it when it came online years ago. So it gives me pause in terms of arts and culture specifically, just as Dr. Kelli said, because it's so muddy, because of the gray area. We don't know where, these images are coming from. If your work is just out on the internet, like, it is being consumed by the machines and by machine learning. So it could pop up anywhere. So I'm not comfortable with the utilization and application of it in, I would just say, showing work specifically. So one of the things that, DAM is thinking about is how to better understand, and learn and explore when artists might be submitting or utilizing AI work, which, sometimes it's, something that's obvious, but other times it's not as obvious, and we find out on the back end, and then you gotta figure some things out. But, outside of arts and culture, I love AI. It has a multitude of applications, and
I do use it for my emails.
Yeah. Yes, so it has its place, but right now, arts and culture is not it.
It's not for at least a few years. We need to figure some things out.
Yeah. And Miah, before we let you go, with the return of Detroit Artist Market, what are you looking forward to with the nonprofit and its future?
I am looking forward to many of the programs that we had the opportunity to redevelop while we were closed, namely our feature artist program, which is geared towards emerging artists and puts together a group of 7 artists who move through the program as a cohort and have 4 professional development programs geared towards the business of art. And then at the end of the program, the educational period in the next calendar year, each artist will have a solo show.
I don't even have a way to end with that. Was just beautiful just to think that these emerging artists now have a pipeline for themselves to build a resume and to build their own work. Miah Davis is the executive director of Detroit Artist Market. Dr. Kelli Morgan is founding executive director of Black Artists Archive. Hot Damn is on display through August 23rd at Detroit Artist Market on Woodward and Forest right here in the Cass Corridor. Miah, Dr. Kelli, thank you both for being here today.
Thank
you.
Coming up, WDET's What's So Funny About Detroit comedy show is this Thursday at the Old Miami, and we'll have the show's headliner, Sam Talent, in the studio to talk about his raunchy, physical brand of comedy. You all stay right there. We'll be right back on The Metro.